Welcome to The Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Amosi Thurlow scale,
or months,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode. Hello, and welcome back to The Lost Signals. I guess it's going to be discusses film and TV.
Not reviewing
reviews,
shit right now.
This episode, because we're doing a special about streaming anthologies. So we're going to call this episode the Stream-thology episode. We're going to talk about the kind of rash of newish streaming shows that have been anthology type series, and so we're going to get right down to it. I am Steve Ramosi, your host, joined today by Jonathan Ian Manzur.
Hello?
Rich Perry. And Scott Thurlow.
My life is an anthology.
As are they all.
That's why it's funny. Go on.
But so what I really want to start talking about, and I think we're going to probably get into like the origins later of where this stuff comes from.
May I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
So you're saying that your life is a series of unordered...
Yes, of course.
Unconnected
Obviously.
fair enough.
And if those are anthologies that you play by a different actor.
And
Scott's a different person every week.
True.
Yeah, so I want to start talking about some of the ones that were the reason that we decided to do this episode, and then we'll get into kind of where they came from and the history of this type of stuff and what we liked growing up and things like that. But let's start with, I think, the most recent one, although there's two of them.
in the same general boat.
There's two of them that are most recent ones, right?
Yeah.
The new Twilight Zone is still on right now. It's on CBS streaming. And I've only seen, I think, 3 of these. I've enjoyed them. It's causing a big kerfuffle online about...
What is it causing?
Yeah, exactly, my friend. Exactly.
That's true. I think they're pretty good. I don't think that I think that perhaps Black Mirror has been better of late, but I think that Jordan Peele's doing a pretty good job with Twilight Zone. So you haven't seen any of them, right, Ian?
Nope.
You've seen 2?
Yeah.
And you've seen 1?
Yeah. And the one they gave out for free, that is. Which we'll get into about the streaming dynamics later on as well.
So we don't know a ton about where these go, but I think we can all talk about at least the first one, which is the comedian. It's called The Comedian,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
And this is about a comedian who who decides to basically wager his...
He sacrifices everything for his art.
It's almost like a deal with the devil where everything that he makes jokes about disappears from his life. So, like, in order to be funny, he has to make jokes about things that are real and in his life, but once he makes these jokes about them, they disappear. So I think one of the first ones is, like, he starts talking about his, like, little cousin or something.
His dog is the first one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He talks about his dog, and his dog disappears, and his little cousin's one of the maybe the one
His
after
next
that.
bit is about his cousin.
And
or nephew, I think.
His nephew.
Oh yeah, his nephew who's there at his show and like on his phone, so he starts making fun of him for being on his phone and like basically being a millennial or whatever. And then he disappears, and he starts to realize what's going on. I don't want to get too deep into spoilers of it, but I think that this has been doing a good job of kind of tackling issues that a lot of people perhaps think are like verboten, right? In terms of like tackling these issues. And it's doing it because it's Jordan Peele, who is very interested in not only making really great movies and shows, but in a lot of like getting diversity in his casting and things like that. So do you guys have any comments on...
I mean, not about the politics of it per se, but yeah, I mean, that is true of it. But I'll just say that outright, Twilight Zone is probably my favorite shows, and it being an anthology, I was very excited to see that it was coming back and that Jordan Peele was doing it, especially given the wake of after Get Out and after Us. I think it came around the same time as Us, or like released roughly at the same time.
A month later.
Shortly after, yeah.
Yeah, so like, I was super excited. And perhaps we'll get into the dynamics of like the nature of streaming services, because I have not pushed the button, if you will, like pulled the trigger on getting CBS All Access or whatever it is.
Yeah, because it's fucking bullshit.
Yes,
it's on a CBS.
I agree with that.
But you can only get it if you pay for it.
I want to see it, of course, but they did give out the first episode for free, The Comedian, like on YouTube or various other channels. And yeah, like, I mean, I'm interested in it, and I guess I wanted to bring up, like, we can discuss it later, but just the dynamics of doing an anthology kind of series in general, like not just Twilight Zone, like any of the ones that we're about to talk about. Like, yeah, you have a lot of, it's more like freedom in a sense to comment upon a lot of various things. Like, yeah, like a reflection of society, which Black Mirror probably is like one of the better ones, as you said, because you can focus on like one little aspect in each thing and not have to like necessarily do an overarching narrative the whole time.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely want to check out more of the new Twilight Zone, but it is interesting that you're able to do that in such a production.
Well, I was told by a meme on the internet that I shouldn't watch the show because Jordan Peele's racist.
Yeah.
I don't see it, but the internet memes are the truth, you know? So,
Is that right?
I mean, you live your life by memes, I guess.
well, we have to. I'm a millennial.
I suppose. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I don't know what to really add to that.
I thought you were about to say something, sorry.
No.
I mean, it is like I've seen that argument a lot from like angry, always white people, and it's fucking really weird. But disregarding the politics of
Not to
all
get
that,
sidetracked.
yeah, disregarding all the politics of all that, Jordan Peele does an amazing job as like the narrator, as like stepping in as the Rod Serling character, and I think the episodes are good. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the season, and I want to know. I'm interested in seeing it progress further and like kind of tightening up the formula for doing this.
Yeah. So before I go on, but correct me if I'm wrong, but so what he's doing is he's sort of some of them are original like stories, right? Like the Comedian was, and then some of them are like remakes or like retellings, reimaginings of like the original stuff. Like they did the Wing on the Plane. Like,
so the second one is Nightmare at 40,000 feet.
And all that. So like I thought this was interesting. So like he was taking some beloved like classic ones that everyone remembers and knows, at least I do. And then also doing
actually we got to do a big shout out here because Nightmare at 40,000 feet is
it's 30,000. God damn it,
30,000
feet. Bet you it.
You're right.
Wait.
Unless he called it 40,000.
No, they changed the name.
Awesome then.
I think it might be 40,000.
The original one is 30. I guarantee.
But regardless, it's all based around a podcast, and here we are. We made it, you guys.
It all cycles back. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that is all.
I mean, I've flown Delta. I've had a nightmare on that.
Yeah. That's true. Good call.
But let's leave off of that because we haven't seen a ton of it and go to the one that I think we've all seen all of, which they just released maybe a month and a half ago or so. Love, Death, and Robots. Great animated anthology series. Very reminiscent of... I want to say the Animatrix,
like kind of yes,
a little
and
bit
no.
of heavy metal too.
Heavy metal, a little bit, yeah. Just a bunch of disconnected, really cool stories, and I kind of want to turn this one over to you guys.
Well, this was actually the inspiration for this episode.
Yeah,
more so than Twilight Zone, and there were, like all anthology series, hit or miss, but I think this hit more than it missed, and I think that Three Robots was
your favorite one.
Absolutely my favorite one. It was such a brilliant.
Yeah, I mean,
my sense of humor, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think they were overall a lot strong, and you're right. Like, so I'll just mention that Love, Death, Robots is it is and it isn't your sort of traditional anthology because they're all like you said, animated skits, and some of the artwork animation is fucking amazing. Like even on that aspect alone is sort of worth checking out. And of course, some of the stories, some of the philosophy they delve into is excellent. And they're also like maybe like 7 minutes, 12 minutes like each, so you can easily like get through them if you really just want to sit there and like just blow through something. That's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that
The
factor.
shortest one was like, what, 4.5
Yeah,
minutes?
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
It was like a...
The yogurt one?
Yeah, narrated by Maurice LaMarche.
Yeah.
yeah. So they're all like excellent. Like they have like cameos, like you wouldn't expect. Like sometimes like people show up in them or whatever, or a voice by something by
There's one,
someone.
like Topher Grace is in,
Yeah.
right? Like Ice
Yeah.
Age or whatever. Yeah,
I'll just say I think Zima Blue is my favorite one. Like I just kind of
Ooh,
love that
was a
shit.
really good
Like
one.
that
yeah.
was a good one.
My favorite was the... They just kind of tied for the one, the Werewolf Marines.
oh yeah.
That was the last one, right?
No.
No, the last one you're
What
thinking
am I
of is
thinking of?
The
Oh yeah,
Secret War.
That's the Alien. Yeah, Secret
Yeah,
War.
this all means nothing if you haven't seen it, but it's all like
Yeah.
disparate kind of stuff, and some of them are just like really cool stories that some sci-fi, like of course, like some fantasy. Like the werewolf one is a bit more like that.
What was your other favorite, Rich?
Oh, the other one was the... I think it's tied between the steampunk one with
Oh yeah,
the fox demon and
Yeah. That one was really good.
the one where they end up getting warp gated into the outer reaches of space.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was depressing.
yeah. So they're
Yeah.
all like
That's
depressingly
why
cool.
I love that one.
I guess also.
Kitsune.
It was
Fox.
Yeah, it wasn't a Kitsune. It was another. It was a similar spirit.
But yeah, it was a cool melding of like that sort of mythology with a steampunk-ish world.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's
Very
got some
cool.
really neat and interesting, unique ideas to it. And yeah, it's just enjoyable and like you can, like I said, get through it fairly quickly. And a lot of them are there's something you don't really see. Like there hasn't
Yeah.
been. There's nothing like it really out right now.
I did really love the first one. And by the way, supposedly these were like all in different orders for people, but everyone I've asked has had them in the same exact order. So I don't know if they did it by region or something
Yeah.
like that, but
Allegedly, they have like a sort of 3 different variations of order.
the
that you
first
can watch it.
one, which is called Her Edge or The Edge or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
like that one really hit me hard, and I like that they put that one first because it was really like easy, lead into like loving the series, and then Three Robots was second, and that one was amazing as well,
I think the 1-2 punch of those starting it off.
Yeah,
really
it's a
sold
good
that
it's a
series.
good opening for sure.
for sure.
Like,
Alright. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I just like after those two, then I just started like skipping around and like watching them out
Yeah,
of order.
actually, that's funny. I did that too. You told me about that order thing. I'm like, well, I'm gonna watch them in some random order anyways.
Well, we did that. So, like, we watched the first 2 or maybe 3, and then we watched Ice Age, which is perhaps the weakest one of all of
Yes,
them.
okay.
We randomly picked it, and then I was like, and it wasn't bad. It was just like,
Right.
this
No,
is-
as Ian said, like they're kind of hit and miss, but mostly hit.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Zima Blue was really good, as you mentioned. What was the? I forgot. Like, didn't that the one where they get warped out to the like outer reaches of space?
Yeah.
Didn't that have a color name too or something?
I can't remember all
Anyway.
the names of them all, but they have cool titles for sure, for the
yeah.
most part.
So great show. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet.
You're gonna find everybody's gonna find at least 6 that they want to become a full series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. That's
For
actually
sure.
a good point. Like any of these, like many of them could have been a season of a thing unto itself. And the fact that it can cram it into like say like 10 minutes or so on average, pretty impressive. And like I said, the animation, the artwork, is very impressive, really cool to check out. So
Yeah,
that is one of the best like recent ones
I
for
completely
sure.
agree. So at this point, let's talk about a show that has been on for a long time and kind of got the anthology back going again. I think to
little
a
bit.
certain extent. Let's talk about Black Mirror. I'm only 3 seasons into Black Mirror. I haven't seen the 4th season. I did watch Bandersnatch, and I think they have a new season coming out soon.
Yeah.
We covered Bandersnatch, so
Yeah.
you had to have watched it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it's a great show that kind of looks at the problems with technology. Like it's Twilight Zone for
Yeah.
technology.
I mean, or explores like the philosophy of it. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And go ahead.
It's weird to me because it reminds me more of Outer Limits than it does Twilight Zone.
Which also
But
a
with
great anthology.
Stronger edge to it that no anthology series I've ever seen deals with. It's I don't know. I think that it's perhaps the best series to come out recently. Even though I love Death and Robots,
Mhm.
it just this elevates it far above.
I mean, I would somewhat piggyback on that. Like, yeah, I loved Black Mirror the second I started watching the first season because, of course, of my adoration for the original Twilight Zone. As you said, it's like that for the modern age and specifically bent toward looking at technology and like 20 minutes in the future kind of stuff, or even things that exist now, but just a little bit of a bent to them. And yeah, as you mentioned, like it's a bit more harsher than like it's more like Outer Limits, like gut punch kind of stuff. A lot of it, which I also like. Like some of it can be quite depressing, but I kind of enjoy that because it does again like it holds up, if you will, a mirror to our society, and especially the way we use like social media and like even things like that. Yeah, and I think it's very well written, and there's some great actors in it that we've seen in other things like afterwards. And yeah, I think it might be possibly my favorite anthology like ish thing at the current moment.
I was actually a little worried when Netflix got the rights to it and like started involving like more American actors, but like they quickly, I think it was with was it Black Christmas?
White Christmas, I think. The one with John Hamm?
Yeah.
That was a special, I think.
Yeah, that was like there was the special that was kind of like the bridging the gap between the old series and what it was about to become. And yeah, they have not lost a step.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird because you would think they might run out of ideas. Like Charlie Booker, I think, is the main guy who writes it, like showrunner and one of the head writers. And like on the surface, like, oh, they can only explore so many things, so many ways. But they kept it.
Rod Serling wrote like fucking 60 episodes.
I understand, but he didn't focus like necessarily just on one sort of aspect of society to a degree. But nevertheless,
but then again, technology. Like he backed the right horse because technology just continues to change. Yeah. The social aspect of it continues to evolve.
That's a good point, and you can sort of like follow along and like make like more like again distorted versions of reality based on that. But yeah, Black Mirror is top notch, and I probably would recommend it over Love, Death and Robots, but still Love, Death, Robots is quite good. But I just think Black Mirror is a show for me because of like my history behind loving the Twilight Zone, the original, so much.
Yeah, completely agree. So I'm gonna
what else you got in the list?
I want to kind of go. Actually, let's talk about this one first, and then I'm gonna go a little bit far afield after this. But
all right.
This one's kind of in the same vein. They just released on Amazon a show called Electric Dreams.
It's been out for a while.
Philip K. Oh, yes. Yeah, just is a relative term.
Sure.
Last year, I believe they released Electric Dreams. Is a Philip K. Dick anthology, or anthology based on Philip K. Dick works.
Yep.
And I only saw a few of them. I think you saw the whole thing.
I did.
Did either one of you guys watch any of it?
I believe I actually saw one episode with Scott.
Okay, I thought you might have watched some with Chris or something, Rich, at some point. But no, I mean, I watched it all again. Like, yeah, Philip K. Dick is my favorite sci-fi writers ever. So, like, I felt almost compelled to. Yeah. And I thought, if you're asking me like what I thought of it, it's fine. It's pretty good overall, for sure.
How much of a representation is it of the original stories?
They follow pretty closely to most of them, like if not all. Like, yeah, they take like a little bit of, I would say, like liberties or like slight tweaks, but for the most part, if you're familiar with the original story and or like novella it's based on, if they do a good job of sticking to that. Yeah. Like, and somewhat similar to Black Mirror, like for example, Steve Buscemi is in one episode, like kind of randomly, and like there's other like actors like that were just like kind of thrown in there, and yeah, like I think they did a pretty damn good job overall with some of the stories I'm more familiar with. Now, granted, I have not read every Philip K. Dick story ever because there's so much of it. So like 2 or 3 of the ones in like Dreams, I'd never read the original story, so I still enjoyed like what they did with it, but I can't tell you how it compares. But I'm just saying overall, I think I enjoyed the fact that they adapted it fairly closely, and the way they portrayed it was solid, and has the production value is pretty high as well.
Yeah, the few I saw I thought were pretty good.
I wouldn't say it's amazing.
I would
but
say
it's
I was
worth
a
a watch.
little bit disappointed because I expected it to be like out of this world incredible, and like that's probably why I didn't finish it. I will admit.
Fair enough.
But I would like to go back and continue and actually finish it.
Like you said, it's not amazing, but it's rock solid for the most part.
Well, Amazon's sort of playing catch up to Netflix production quality. So.
Although Amazon's got a lot of good shows out. Sneaky Pete, check it out.
Well, in terms of anthologies, I think we're saying, I think they're throwing most of the budget into, like, for example, Man in the High Castle, not an anthology, although Philip K. Dick work, like, so it connects. Yeah. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Netflix, that brings me back to
what's next?
One that I've been looking forward to talking about, and something that I know at least 3 of us have watched, I believe, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is pretty far afield for what we've been talking about so far, which has mostly been like sci-fi or like speculative fiction. Ballad of Buster Scruggs is a Coen Brothers anthology that was kind of like Old West.
Also, it's a movie
stories.
and not a television television
That's
show.
true. That's true.
Like, technically it's vignettes, but
it's
yeah.
6 different stories that are just phenomenal. This is one of my favorite movies from last year. I loved it. I wish that
We were supposed to review it, I believe, at some point.
Yeah,
but
I wish it could have won
we'll talk about it now.
some more awards than it did.
Okay.
But yeah, they're just some brilliant acting. Liam Neeson, Tom Waits, a bunch of other people who I'm
I
gonna.
believe James Franco.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, James Franco.
Stephen Root.
Stephen Root. Oh my God.
Yeah, like again, like it's
Pan
sort of, like,
shot.
surprisingly like you wouldn't expect like some of these actors perhaps like to be in it, but
Yeah.
it's a Coen Brothers thing, and like you say, yeah, it's one like 2-hour chunk or whatever, however long it is, and not like separate episodes per se. But it is like it might as well be because you could watch each one individually and sort of shuffle them around. Even
Yeah, it's absolutely great.
it is quite fantastic, though. I recommend it as well.
Ian, do you have any stories about your?
I actually have
remembrance?
a very hard time picking out which one is my favorite. Because there's ones that really there's at least 2 that really tug at the heartstrings.
One that's really funny. Yeah, like I mean,
Yeah,
they go for various moods.
I must say, perhaps Tom Waits as the prospector, though, is really the first thing I think of when I reflect on that. It might not be the best one, but it just has a heart to it that just resonates.
I will say the wagon train to Oregon or whatever where they were going. The wagon train one is the one that I think is the best.
That's tragic.
Yeah, and that's why it's the
Tragic one,
best.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great twist, a great turn that they
They're
do
all
in
great. Like the wingless thrush.
Mhm.
Great story.
it. They're also it's
The
like
the last episode where they're
Where they're in the stagecoach.
probably
or
on the way to
a
the
somewhat of an
afterlife.
Right.
allegory to something.
Yeah.
it's absolutely, I don't know, everything they do in that, whether they're doing kind of Bugs Bunny cartoons for the first one or reflecting upon death for the last one. It's a well put together piece. Good on the Coen brothers.
Very good. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yep. Damn solid.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of the ones that I want to talk about on the new streaming services. There have been some sketch shows that I guess are kind of in that vein. You're talking about like With Bob and David, or
Which was fine over. It was okay.
there's one called Birthday Boys that was on Netflix. But not exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they're sketch shows. It's sort of like Mad TV kind of shit to a degree.
So
Snuffbox.
Snuffbox.
Hey, Matt Berry is fantastic.
Yes.
Matt Berry's
Anything he does.
hilarious.
For sure. I mean, he's great in everything.
But let me ask you guys this: what do you think it is about like a good anthology show that makes it more memorable or like different than other types of shows? Like you get something like The Twilight Zone back in the day, or like Outer Limits, or something else we'll maybe talk about in a little bit, Tales from the Crypt.
Well, we, in our literature reviews, tend to focus on short stories versus novels.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we almost exclusively talk about short
I
stories.
think we've only done like 3 novels ever, but sure.
If even that many.
Yeah.
The thing is, so it's the difference between a novel and a short story and what they do. And I feel that where a novel creates a sprawling world with multiple characters that you're following and dealing with a deep analysis, like short stories focus on a tight story, fewer characters, with if done well, with a kind of concise point to the themes that they want to address.
Yeah.
And I think anthology series does that, like good anthology series does it well, like Twilight Zone back in the day, or I haven't seen the new one, so I can't comment on that, or a Black Mirror really drives home the point it wants to, and they do that in where novels or movies can't.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, you can have a laser focus, right? You sort of get in and get out. You have like 1 or 2 maybe things you want to focus on, like something you want to say, a message or theme or whatever. And then since you only have, like, let's say half an hour to an hour or what, like roughly per episode, right? So then you have to focus on it. You have to make it memorable, or at least make it impactful, or if not entertaining, like a good story. And it's kind of more bite-sized in a sense. It's more palpable. Like you can consume it easier, right? It's not not as big of a commitment as well. So you don't have to like watch like 3 fucking whole seasons or whatever. You can like Love, Death, and Robots. You watch any of them at random, and it's fine because you don't need to know like any back history.
Plus, it's a lot more satisfying when you find yourself identifying with these characters and like hitting these themes hitting you so hard within a short amount of time.
Yeah, agreed. Like, right. So that's another aspect to it. So yeah, I think that's like a big difference between like that and like you said, like a big sprawling overarching narrative. So you could again shuffle them around, choose one at random, and if the 1 or 2 get to you, then you're probably prone to now invest in like the rest of the anthology. But you don't have to either. I mean, you can still enjoy 1 or 2 or X out of Y without like having to commit to a whole other show essentially.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think it's a different writing process, of course, for sure. Like different creative process to do like an anthology kind of thing.
Obviously, you have an end where a normal television episode would need to build up to the next episode,
like have a cliffhanger or whatever. Yeah.
I do enjoy the fact a lot in these that you can talk about a lot of different themes. Like it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be building one overall theme. You can be talking about a bunch of different things, and every episode can be something different.
And have like a whole bunch of different characters. As you said,
that's really nice, especially if you have somebody who has a lot to say, like Rod Serling from the original, Jordan Peele in the new Twilight Zone, or like I think David Lynch had something to do with Love, Death, and Robots.
He did. Shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's like so much you can say in a series like this where it's like, oh, you have 10 episodes or whatever to say 10 different things. Like, have a general idea of what you're going to talk about and like have a general overarching theme, but you can say it in 10 different ways and like attack it from different,
kind of
10 different, vantage points. And I love that about anthologies. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody else has anything else to mention about that before we move on.
Nothing specific per se, but you move on and then I might.
Well, I maybe have it's not always the case, though, that nuance can be lost in such a short narrative frame, because I think that a good episode of an anthology can have nuance in discussion.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, if you have a good writer and a good team.
Like a television show, like a good writer can make the difference between a very tight and but still nuanced episode or not.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. All right, so let's talk about. I want to talk about some older shows. Where these new streaming shows came from? These streaming anthology shows came from, and kind of what was everybody's favorites from back in the day. So Twilight Zone's a big one.
I mean, that's going to be my answer like 100% all the time. It might be my favorite show ever.
If you can't say Twilight Zone, pick something else.
Okay.
Tales from the Crypt.
Which is
what I love Twilight Zone, but I actually grew up on Tales from the Crypt. I would love to see it come back. The cheesy Crypt Keeper and all. Like it's
that whole opening crawl used to scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, it was so perfect, dude. Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't know. I loved it because it dealt with dark themes, but it dealt with it with a wink and a nod that always worked well.
Yeah, it had that sort of like grindhouse sort of aspect to it to a degree, for sure. Like that's a really good pick. So I mean, I guess just quick, my history as a kid, I didn't really have cable till I was like almost in high school, like around 14, 15. So I only had like the network channels of. Grandpa, as I recall. So, like, I mean, like Twilight Zone was something they showed like all the time. So yeah, like that informed my sensibilities a lot. And along with that, in the 90s Outer Limits. I know there was also like an original 60s Outer Limits as well, but I remember the 90s one.
That's the only one I'm familiar
with. Right. I remember that one quite a bit. Like that, the opening of that, like, just to like give me the like chills, like scare the crap out of me. Like just the way it was like so menacingly, narrated. So those two, I would say, and yes, I agree. Once I had HBO or whatever, I believe that was what Tales from the Crypt was on. Like, so again, I was a little bit older. I was, mid high school, late high school, and yeah, I'm like, this shit is amazing. Like, it had sex, it had violence, it had everything, and had like his like stupid puns about like ghouls, like ghouls and girls, like all that shit. Like, it was great, and I do agree. I think we've had this conversation offcast, the three of us. I cannot believe someone hasn't pitched a remake of it because I think
Give
it would
it
be
time.
super popular.
Give it time.
Yeah, it'll come back.
I guess, but like I can't believe it hasn't happened already. Is all. So
Just waiting for the right moment.
I suppose.
Yeah,
but
my one I used to watch all the time, every Saturday night to close out Snick, was Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Nice.
Man, I love that show.
You're triggering me.
I love that show so much because
Getting
like
flashbacks.
you would think that for a kid's show it would always have like a happy or like ending, but for the most part, a lot of them ended up with like either the kids dying or in fates worse than death.
Yeah.
And it's just like
Clown episode and Leprechaun episode with the
What about the-
school thing? That was both of those.
the one that got me was
Traumatic
the,
for you.
The one that got me was the pool that was shut down with the spirit that was like drowning kids.
Yeah. What about do you remember the Ghost Kid episode? Who was just like outside the house going, "I'm cold."
Yes.
That scared the shit out of me.
Every time I watched it, I would make sure that it wasn't the episode with the clown. So not that I'm scared of clowns anymore, no, but that episode
Got to you.
got me.
That clown was horrifying. I agree with that.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
For
enough.
sure. I'm trying to think of other ones that I wanted to mention. Storyteller, I believe, is what it was called. I think we talked about this
Jim Henson?
earlier. The Jim Henson
Yeah.
show. That show was great.
I didn't really get to watch that. So
That show was great.
It was like a mix.
You can still go find it on like YouTube.
Yeah,
it's fucking
It's
awesome.
like a mix. Not only was stories good, but like, of course, the Jim Henson puppetry
Yeah.
Yeah.
just elevated to a whole nother fucking level.
Yeah.
And fair, I can see that.
And it just had this like almost I was like a labyrinth
Yeah.
feel to it, or like maybe even like Dark Crystal type of feel to it.
Mhm.
And like, oh my god, it was so good.
Because they'd split it up too, where they did like either like new stories, some original ones, like older stories, and then they did like, I think there was one season where they did just straight myths.
I think there was a separate show where they did like Greek myths.
Okay.
I think it was like
Is this
it was like a
spin-off or
spin-off
something?
of
Got you. Because I remember seeing the Icarus one.
yeah, and they were both great.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. Like, you know, Jim Henson's studio in its prime, like running fucking great shows. It was like an old guy and his dog, and the old guy would tell the stories, and like the dog
man
was
and
a
his
puppet, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And like
That
it was
could
just
talk. of
yeah,
course.
that could talk, and it was fucking great. It was just so good.
You know, I just thought of this real quickly. Like, this isn't one, and I thought it was okay overall. So, American Horror Story, like, yes, they had full seasons, but then like some of them would cross over. Like it wasn't necessarily an anthology, and overall it was like all right, like fine. But they sort of like tried to do it both ways to an extent.
No, but I think that it's not an episodic anthology, but it's a seasonal anthology.
Yeah, exactly.
So that does work, I think, under
Yeah.
my definition of it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was an interesting sort of thing to try, but it was okay overall. Go ahead.
So I have a random one to pull out, but I don't know if it counts as an anthology. I feel more falls into sketch comedy,
yeah.
but it's, I think, the bridge between the streaming service and there's a YouTube show. I'm going to give it a shout. I'm doing this mostly because I want to give a shout out to it. Cyanide and Happiness. I don't know if any of you are fans of that.
Originally started as a comic, right?
Yeah.
But became
That's right.
a
I've heard
show on there with, I mean, it is a few of them do
Right.
There were some
recurring themes,
callbacks, but not
but
always.
generally it's a unique episode each time. So I don't know if we count, that's the weird thing is, like, if we count Love, Death, Robots as, would there have 4 minutes to like 20 minutes
Yeah.
as a,
I'm
perhaps-
right with it.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
good.
We'll count it.
Good pull.
it's great.
It's wonderful.
It's, if you like dark humor, it's one of the best.
Honestly, I think this is just an episode where we tell people, here's a bunch of cool shit to watch.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Check it out.
I'm okay with
That
that.
falls under the
Yeah.
banner anthology broadly.
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. I don't know if I had the one that you mentioned earlier, Rich.
The Shivering
But
Truth.
you're the only one that's ever seen this. So if
It's,
you want to talk about
It's
it.
like Adult Swim's stab at like horror anthology, but with their signature
Adult Swim weirdness.
Adult Swim
Surreality,
weirdness. Yeah,
bizarreness.
surreal- Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's kind of runs the gamut. Well, the first episode kind of runs the gamut between like really serious, the unexpectedly serious for an Adult Swim show, to like their signature humor, and then back around to surreality, and just ends on a what the fuck, what did I just watch? Is this profound or just
some bizarre like blender of all that shit?
Yeah.
and you're just left confused and wanting to watch the next episode to see if they can continue what they did.
Which perhaps is a sign of a good anthology.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like that kind of stuff. I dig it. All right. Anybody else have anything else to mention, or
I don't think too much. I think, like you said, mention the ones that we thought like recent and like pretty solid, and like they're somewhat the lineage of like where they came from. And yeah, like to me, Time Enough at Last is the best episode of anything ever.
Sure.
So,
it's a great episode.
So anything that like
I still quote that.
Yeah, of course.
To this day.
I do it at work all the time. But yeah, and like it is interesting to see like maybe we'll see a couple more things in the same vein like coming out, and then maybe in the fall, like next year, like what's going to be announced that will be a quote unquote true anthology, and how what they're going to do with it, and what it's going to be like.
New season of Black Mirror coming out soon.
Yeah. When does that come out exactly? Do you have the date on that?
July.
July.
Yeah, I
So
think it's
very
July.
soon. So in about time of this recording,
Wait, it
about
might
a
be June,
month and a
actually.
half.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Maybe that early.
let's say roughly a month from the time
Soon.
of us recording this. Sure.
Soon.
Relatively soon.
They just released individual trailers for each episode.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
cool. Nice.
That's interesting.
So check that out, I suppose. Yeah, and I'll certainly be checking out the new season of Black Mirror for sure.
Yeah.
But and again, then my final thought is I'll second again that they should definitely redo Tales from the Crypt, like 100%. That'd be fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, they are.
Now you got me
I
thinking about it.
forgot to mention that they're bringing back Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh shit, they are.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
either I think both in movie form and a new TV show.
Oh, wow.
So there you go.
Going
There you
all
go.
out.
Yeah,
Terrified.
yeah. Be terrified all over
I
again.
guarantee you they're bringing the clown episode.
Stay away from your TV and the fucking theater.
Well, that's cool. So
You
yeah,
can't be on the show anymore.
it's definitely interesting to see like how like what kind of anthologies and how they do it, like what they're going for, what angle, like what theme or philosophy they're going to explore in each one. And yeah, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
That's it for me.
I guess let's wrap it up. Then go check out some anthologies. You've heard them all here first, or
The ones we said that were
maybe
good.
not first, but you've heard them all here. I have been your host, Steve Ramosi, joined tonight by Jonathan E. Manzer,
Thank you for watching, boys and ghouls.
Rich Perry,
And this concludes the meeting of the Midnight Society.
and Scott Thurlow.
And there was time now. Good night.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manser. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?